Here we go. Hi, everybody. This is the first edition of the GPL Book Club. We're going to tell you about some books that we think are super cool. Okay, so I'm Mary Jo, and I'm one of the Children's Services Librarians at the Gates Public Library. And I have some very special friends here who are going to tell you about some books that they've read that they like a lot. So I have with me Mary.
Hi.
And Emma. And Autumn. All right, so we're all going to take turns telling you a little bit about a book that we read that we thought was super great. And Mary is going to start. So Mary, take it away.
I'm reading this book, The New Kid, and I like it because it's not too bad and not too good. It's like kind of in the middle. Like there's some like sad parts and some happy parts, but that's how I like them, like books like that.
And can you tell me a little bit more about it, Mary? It's a graphic novel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so kids that like graphic novels might like it. It's about a boy who is going to a school, and it's a private school, so he has to act one way at his school, but differently when he's at home with his friends, and that's hard for him to kind of balance.
Yeah, because he's like, his friends at school are, like most of the kids at school are like rich or something, and he's like not very rich, and like, so he does have to act differently, and it's like really weird for him.
Yeah, and he has a lot of trouble figuring it out at first. He does eventually kind of figure out the best way to handle it, I think, but at first he's kind of having some trouble. And I would agree with you. That's about the way I felt about this book too. It's kind of in the middle. I liked it. I didn't think it was fantastic, but then again, a lot of people did think it was super fantastic because it won the Newbery Medal this year. So that's definitely a book Mary and I both would think that's great. If you want to try and read it, you might like it. Mary, you want to show them some of the pictures inside so they can kind of get an idea what it looks like?
So I'll show you the one I'm on right now. This is one of the chapters. This is chapter 10.
Yeah.
It's called The Saki Horror Picture Show, and it is chapter 10. And here's another page that I've already read. This is when his mom found the new school and she really liked it. And they couldn't send him to art school because they didn't have enough money or something like that.
Oh, that's right.
And he wanted to go to art school really, really bad.
Yeah, I like the illustrations in this book a lot. I really love the illustrations. I gotta say, I thought the illustration is really cool, and I like the chapter. I'm glad you showed him a chapter heading because I like the chapter headings. I think those are kind of the titles of the chapters are kind of like
they tell you mostly about what the chapter is going to be about. Like,
they do, because
the pictures tell you about it, and like that's what chapter books don't have sometimes.
Right, exactly. I think that's a good point to make.
Mm-hmm.
So Mary, are you anything else you want to add, or are we good?
No.
Okay. So that's
finished with the book? Are you finished with the book? No, I haven't finished it yet. I've got a few more pages.
Mary, so once more, can you show them the cover and tell them the title and the author, and then we'll move on to Emma.
So this is The New Kid, and it's by Jerry Craft. I hope you read it.
Thanks, Mary. So Emma, can you tell us about your book?
My book is Judy Moody Goes to College. It's number 8. I like it because it's funny, and she has to get tutored, so and the tutor is in college, so she goes to college, and at first she thinks it's going to be boring and horrible, but then she actually ends up liking it.
Wow, that sounds great. I haven't read that one. Is her brother stinking it at all?
Yeah, he's in it. He's in it like when she's at home, he's telling her about what she's gonna have to do at the tutoring session, and he's all wrong.
Of course, because how would he know? He's never been to college.
Hmm.
So, so the person is a girl who's tutoring her, or a guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
And her name is, let me see, Chloe.
And what is Chloe going to college for?
I guess school, I think. I mean, yeah, and I think, and she goes to art class in the school, so.
Okay, so maybe she's going to be an art teacher or something like that. But she also tutors people.
Hmm.
That's great. That sounds very interesting. I was wondering how Judy Moody went to college because, like, she's like 10 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering of, like, how did she go to college? She's like so young. And I was thinking, is she that old?
Or is she just really, really smart? So she gets to go to college when she's only 10 years old. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the youngest I've heard of anybody going to college was maybe 14. I don't think I ever heard of anybody going to college when they were 10.
Well, really, really, really smart kids should go to college when they're 10. Like, super smart kids.
Yeah. I definitely wasn't smart enough. So
Like,
I
gifted
couldn't.
children.
Not when I was 10. No, that didn't work.
I'm not even 10.
You're not even 10.
I've also been reading a lot of books about Judy Moody.
I'm not even 9 yet.
Well, you guys are exactly the age you should be. Don't you worry about it for a second. Emma, you've been reading a lot of books about Judy Moody?
Hmm.
How many have you read? Have you read all the way up to 8?
Well, I have 2, 4, 7, 8, 10, 11, but I let my cousin borrow 10 and 11.
Wow. So you have read a lot about Judy Moody.
Hmm.
They're pretty fun. I have read a couple of them and I like them. They're a lot of fun. So can we move on to Autumn, or did you have more you wanted to say, Emma?
Yeah, you can move on to Autumn.
Thank you for telling us about Judy. Well, before we move on to Autumn, just once more, show your book, tell us who wrote it, and tell us the name of it.
Megan McDonald wrote it.
And it's called Judy Moody Goes to College, right?
Hmm.
Awesome. Thanks, Emma. Autumn, tell us about your book.
Well, my book is A Tale of Magic, and it's by Chris Colfer. I really like it because it's about magic, and I'm like really into fantasy books. It has unicorns, griffins, fairies, like magical creatures, and the main character's name is Bristol. And at first, in the first like 4 chapters, it's describing her life. Like this was way back when, like when girls weren't allowed to read books, if that ever actually happened. And like what she studied in school was she studied to either have a motherhood or get married.
Okay, this sounds like a time I would not like to be living in. No books, and you only have 2 choices of what you can do in your life. That sounds awful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so Bristol secretly read, and her mom found out because she smelled the candle that Bristol used overnight, because Bristol had just put it out in the morning because she fell asleep reading.
Uh-oh.
And her dad is a justice, like a judge.
Okay.
Her brother is a justice, and her other brother, her younger brother, is training to be a justice. So when he gets into a justice, she actually is caught because she turns into a maid. Well, she doesn't turn. into one. She gets hired as a maid in the library, and she gets caught reading in a justice only section. It's a
Uh-oh.
secret place, and she's caught doing magic, and magic is outlawed in
Uh-oh.
all 4 kingdoms.
Hmm.
And so then she's taken to a hearing, I think it's called,
Okay.
and is almost killed
By
Yikes.
who?
by the high justice. You know how
Oh.
like they murder people for doing stuff bad back then?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was almost, killed. And then her dad rushed in and was like, "Stop this crazy nonsense." And
Job, Dad.
the high justice actually got her 2 brothers to do her court thing.
Hmm.
And he was doing it to, their last name is Evergreen, to embarrass the Evergreen family, which is
Wow.
like
Who did it?
the high justice.
To embarrass them?
Yeah,
That's just wrong.
I know.
Agreed.
And so she's taken to like a boarding school, but it's not school. It's like they think that magic is an illness and they can cure it, but they can't.
Oh, wow.
So
And so then this magical person, she calls herself a fairy. They call magical people witches, like evil witches. But
Mm.
she calls
is this
herself a fairy.
in medieval times, or like, because witches
Not really.
or oh,
Not really. And so then she drives a carriage with unicorns with magenta mane and silver horns.
Uh-huh.
And so then they go to a golden castle, which expands itself to every person who's in it to a very special room of their own.
Hmm.
And there are 2 apprentices and 3 students, 3 including Bristol. And so this is the cover of my book.
Tale of Magic, and it's by Chris Colfer, who
is
wrote.
it a series?
Well, the second one is A Tale of Witchcraft, which comes out in September.
Okay.
Well, it comes out in this year, and here's the hardcover, not including this. There's the carriage.
So Emma, Chris Colfer did write a series, and this must be his new series that he's starting.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he wrote
The Land of Stories.
yes, yeah, I've read
You read that?
1 and half of 2.
There you go.
I haven't read them yet.
Autumn,
Yeah.
that sounds like a really good book. Thank you.
I've already read it once, and I've read it again, and it's been like a day, and it's about 500 pages, and I'm already at page 413.
Oh my gosh, you're zooming
know.
through that book.
Yeah, I could devour the whole library in, let's say, a year.
I think you probably could. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. All right, so I'm going to tell you very quickly about my book. It's called Scary Stories for Young Foxes, and it's by a guy named Christian McKay Hedeker, I think is how you say his name, maybe Heidecker. So in this book, there's 7 little foxes, and they want their mother to tell them a scary story.
Uh-oh.
But she says, I'm not going to tell you a scary story. She says, she starts to tell them a couple different stories, and they're like, no, those aren't really scary. We want a really scary story. And she says, oh, I only remember one scary story, but I don't really remember it that well, but the old storyteller knows it. So they sneak off to where the old storyteller is, and the old storyteller starts to tell them stories about 2 foxes named Mia and Uli. So a girl fox and a boy fox. And they have the most terrifying adventures. And one by one, the little foxes creep off back to their homes. but maybe one of them stays, and maybe there's a surprise at the end. And the stories about Mia and Uli are all kind of told like they're almost like fairy tales, almost like, well, folk tales. They're like folk tales. And I really loved this book a lot. I think you might like it. It's so good. It's kind of scary, but you guys could definitely handle it. It's a little creepy, but there's parts that are really funny, and you would like the characters of Mia and Uli a lot.
Can you
It's scary stories.
tell me one of the creepy parts?
Can I tell you a creepy part? No, you've got to read it and find out the creepy part. Well,
Yeah,
I'll tell you one. There's one creepy part where they think they found like a paw of one of the foxes that is, like a disembodied, just like the paw, and it seems to be moving. That's one of the kind of creepy parts of it.
Oh, that's creepy.
It's creepy. It is. But you have to read it and see if that's really happening or if something else is happening.
their imagination.
Yeah, kind of. Maybe kind
Like
of.
an illusion.
All right, my friends, that was awesome. We will do it again sometime. So right now, you got to say goodbye to all the people watching you out in the land.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
We hope you find lots of good books to read, and we'll come and tell you some more about some other books.